affiliate of NACAC, the National Association for College Admissions Counselors. It consists of Arkansas as well as 8 other states in the Caribbean. Membership runs from September 1st through August 31st, and the cost is usually $45 per member. Right now, due to COVID and other issues, we've actually the organization has decided to reduce costs for members of CBOs as well as public schools to free. So if you're interested in joining SACAC, now is definitely the time to do so. Ways to connect. So I already mentioned our annual conference happening in April in Orlando, Florida. So if you're in Arkansas right now, which all of you guys are, you see this weather that we're getting. And from what I hear, Orlando is way prettier as far as weather goes than we are right now. So hopefully the weather will maintain and we can go out there and just have a great time and connect with others at that conference. Our summer seminar is a 4-day workshop hosted on college campuses in June. For new and nearly new college counseling professionals. Some of my favorite things about SACAC, though, is the Sweet Tea Tour. It's a 5-day college tour hosted in June. Members are able and non-members are able to travel throughout the region. This year's trip will go to Louisiana and Mississippi and allow counselors to really get a feel for colleges right in our backyard. If your students are like mine, we usually apply to schools in states that kind of partner or touch Arkansas. So knowing the resources in Louisiana and Mississippi and the experiences of the students happening at those schools will be a great benefit for your students. Legislative days and the virtual book clubs. Again, one of my favorites is more of a relaxed, informal way of connecting with others. People have connected with books such as The Privileged Poor by Dr. Abraham Jack and other books that really allow us to connect with others and learn about the experience of our students from a different lens. All right, a couple of other things that we can do with SACAC. Our mini cap college is an in-person, it's actually virtual now because of COVID. Our day-long workshops for students to learn about the college admissions process. Virtual mini camp colleges are 1-hour topic-specific seminars. They range from everything from essay writing workshops to financial aid to best practices for admissions. For counselors that want to go out and participate in SACAC-related events but may not have the budget, the Council Participation Fund is out there to help. So if you're a public school counselor or a CBO counselor that can use additional resources, definitely connect with SACAC to find the funding to go. The Extended Dream Grant enables members to establish and pay for special projects in the communities that benefit students. Everything ranging from college fairs to mini camp colleges to essay writing workshops. If money is an issue for your organization, you have a great idea, definitely let SACAC know and we can fund that for you. If you'd like to get more involved with SACAC or state and area initiatives, feel free to reach out by emailing stateinitiatives@sacac.org, or you can contact me directly at darren@arkansascommitment.org. All right, thank you all.
All right, Darren, thank you so much for that introduction to SACAC, and I'm going to kick it back over to you shortly, but we want to get our first session started. We've got Darren back again, and he will be joined by Mr. Wendell Scales, the Deputy Director of Innovation at Arkansas Lighthouse Academies. Both great guys. Got a really awesome session coming up on culturally responsive counseling. So thank you, Darren, and thank you, Wendell.
So there's not two of me on. So Wendell is using my log on, just in case you're confused.
Yeah, let me change that real fast. There aren't two Darrens. Thank you for having us today. Look forward to engaging with you all. And I'll kind of break the ice. We want this to be an open conversation. I think me and Darren have shared our sentiments in regards to how workshops go. This is a conversation, so don't hesitate to pause at any time as we work through the slides. Let me go ahead and get one.
While we pull it up, I know Matt did a great job in introducing Wendell. Let me do the same for myself. So my name is Darren. I am the State and Area Initiatives Chair for SACAC, but I also have the privilege of being executive director of Arkansas Commitment. We're a nonprofit organization that prepares students of color for the college admissions process. We provide free ACT prep, college counseling services, as well as math and science tutoring. We put on annual college fairs and professional development workshops for counselors to really provide all around wraparound services for students and counselors in the region. So today, like Wendell was saying, we're going to talk about how to be a culturally responsive college counselor. I'm going to let him kick it off.
All right. So first, just to kind of get it started, a little bit about ourselves. I think we want to calibrate the conversation. The key today will be, from my vantage point, community. In my role as a college counselor, and then this role, I found it important to supplement my workload and access opportunities by connecting with other community stakeholders, i.e. a Darren, and it has created an interesting way we have the same mission, but also achieve the same outcomes, but we also provide a different take on how we provide our services to our scholars and families. So in our work, in my role, we partner with New America on a lot of different lenses, and they take an approach that is defined by 10 cultural competencies. You will see we'll try to associate the competencies to each slide. So ultimately, I think it's important for us to understand that we're dealing with a different type of student. I know the pandemic has shown these scholars have a different set of needs. So, before we kick it off in regarding to the slides, one of the things we want to do is just pause and in one word in the chat, define how COVID has impacted your educational experience supporting your scholars.
And if I could add to that, if you could also talk about what region, if you can let us know what region you're coming from as well. I know a lot of counselors on the call are coming from all over the state: Northwest Arkansas, Central Arkansas, the Delta region. So we want to know where you are so we can try to cater this conversation around your unique experiences. So deferred admissions to the next year, I'm seeing that a lot as well. More risk adverse, definitely seeing that a lot. Seems like a lot of students are either opting to stay closer to home. And I get it, it's COVID, it's scary. People want to be closer to family, and students want to stay closer to their loved ones right now. So that definitely makes sense.
Yeah, in Northwest, okay. All right, so those are some great Arkansas, okay. So as we think about the region, I talked about community as well. We're gonna lean on the region as we think through who our scholars are. I think it's important to, the scholars we serve all come from different backgrounds, but you may deal with first gen, underrepresented, undocumented, BIPOC, mobile natives. What we have saw that this generation values input from their peers more than their parents or other role models. Because we have been in a pandemic, and we do talk about money a lot, they are prioritizing saving money, which may also limit the experiences from a college going. They may want to stay close to home. This recession has impacted where they want to prioritize their educational experience. They also care about personalization and authenticity. And ultimately, they're raised by Gen Zers. I have scholars whose parents are my age, and I think that's a unique twist on it because they're growing up as well. So we're gonna move to the next slide, and as Darren mentioned, we're gonna focus on the Delta. So one of the things when we talk about access, the question will be, what is your vantage point? So one of the things we wanted to ask you all or ask you all to think about is, can you call out one, your region, as he said, but also its unique challenges? And I think some of you all listed them in the chat, but let's lean on that a little bit. From your own cultural lens, what has been your challenges in your region?
And I know it's early in the morning, so it might take a little while to type it up. So I'll start the conversation while we do. But for some of my region, what we're seeing, and I'm in Central Arkansas for my students, so I work with a unique organization. We have students that come from about 14 different high schools all over the area. And a couple of things that I'm seeing is pretty consistent is students do want to stay close to home. For the students that I'm working with, which is mostly African-American students, we're seeing that because of the social political climate right now, they want to stay in a culture that's familiar to them. So I'm seeing a large increase in HBCUs, interest in HBCUs. Finances is a huge issue right now. We see the rates of college tuition going up. Family incomes right now, because of inflation, are going a little bit lower. So students, for my first time in 10 years, are very focused on finances, almost at the same level as parents right now. And those are all presenting very unique challenges in how we counsel students, how we advise students, and what's playing into their decision. I felt like when I was applying to college, the only thing I really thought about is if I'm going to be comfortable and how far away from my parents I'm going to be. These students now are thinking about it on a much more adult level. They're thinking about finances, job opportunities post-college, and things that's really going to play into their future.
Yep. And just kind of to add to that piece, studies are showing that nearly 65% of families face barriers to their preferred post-secondary path. So again, these kids are, and I know Darren will lean in on it as we move forward, they are eliminating potential opportunities that they may have from a holistic admissions standpoint because they don't see the money and the benefit long term, and they don't think it's realistic. So I think, if we taking a regional approach and understanding that each region has this unique set of challenges, as we engage today, it'll be important to kind of continue to pull those out, but also understand that like we all play a role as gatekeepers in ensuring that our students have the resources they need. One of the other things, as I said, we work with New America extensively at Arkansas Lighthouse Academies in how we serve our scholars. And it just has caused us to think differently about equity and access. And again, I mentioned the 8 cultural competencies. As you all serve scholars, these are just some of the takeaways I want you to think through and also maybe consider in how you support them. Competency 1. Reflect on one's cultural lens. I think we always have to understand that our vantage point may be unique to the scholars we serve. And I think we have all been stretched during the pandemic. There have been a lot of opportunities to get PDs. So, reflect on your lens and understand that, that may also present opportunities where you got to recognize and readdress bias within the system, which we will also talk through in our other slides. Cultural competency 3, draw on students' culture to share curriculum instruction. I know we are in our roles, we're at administrative level, but we also have the opportunity to move freely throughout our campuses. And we do understand that the academic curriculum instruction plays a pivotal role in how we serve our scholars. And even in the workshops or things we provide our students, I think it's important that we show representation within the resources that we're providing our scholars. Also bringing real world issues into the classroom. When you all are creating opportunities to engage with the scholars, I think it's important that you talk about things happening in real time that affect them directly, but also things that they're passionate about. We spend a lot of time with these scholars and we write essays about them. We're in their financial documents. And I think being able to have those real conversations with your scholars will get the most out of the admissions experience. Also, model high expectations for your students. I think that's very important, no matter what region you are, no matter what background you're from. When you model high expectations for your scholars, I've seen it in my experience, like most of them rise to the occasion. A lot of them are looking for that. You know, scholars need instruction. So do your best to amplify how you're serving them, no matter how hard it can be. Make sure you manage model high expectations. Also promote respect for student differences. I think that's the goal of this conversation. The more that we can create safe spaces where we can have conversations about differences, makes us and empowers us in our role. Collaborate with family and local communities. You know, SACAC is a great example of how community can be utilized to support family. An organization like Arkansas Commitment is a great example of how to stretch out beyond your local community to utilize other community resources, and also communicate linguistically in culturally responsive ways. A lot of the families that I serve, underrepresented, low income, first gen, many of the scholars I serve, Hispanic and Latino, they may be the only English speakers in the home. So understanding that, like making sure you have resources that can support the families. Those are key in how we think differently about equity and access and serving our scholars. And as we move forward, I think it's important, and I think, it's important to understand that the college access barriers also are pivotal in how we support our scholars, going back to recognizing and readdressing bias within the system. And I think Darren has more insight into how we navigate these barriers.
Yeah, so one thing I want us to remember too is when we talk about diversity, it's so easy for us to often think about in terms of black and white, right? Especially coming from Arkansas, where the racial makeup of the state is close to 50-50. I'm not sure about you all, but the population that I serve is, like I said, mostly like 99% African American. And a lot of the students that we work with are in our schools are pretty homogenous in a sense. But I think it's important to remember that diversity is more than just about black and white. It's also a diversity of thought, diversity of political affiliation, religious affiliation, sexual orientation. And these are the things that make up our students. And there's countless ways and other ways that people can't self-identify. But for our students, it's important for us to meet them where they are from their own perspective. As humans, though, it's often easy for us, just by nature, we default and see things from our own perspective. We have to consciously try to put ourselves in the shoes of others, just to see it from their vantage point. I tell my students all the time, it's easy for me to tell them what they do, but unless they see it for themselves, it's going to be impossible for them to actually know the steps needed. It's kind of like the corny analogy that I always use, walking up a mountain. I'm walking up a mountain, I'm 200 feet ahead of my students, and I'm trying to tell them, I can look out and see the trees, the landscape behind us and everything, and they're not at a point yet where they can see it for themselves. So in order for me to get them to that point, I have to coach them and give them all the resources they need so that they can elevate. And once they do, they can see it for themselves and see themselves in that picture. But they first have to visualize it for themselves to know that they can achieve those goals. They can reach that peak. So one thing that's important for us, especially as counselors, is to try to understand the unique vantage points of our students. Where are they coming from? What's their socioeconomic status? What are some barriers and some challenges that they're facing in home that's going to play out in school and in the college admissions process? So we're not able to see things from their standpoint, fully from their standpoint. There's so many systemic barriers in place that just from our perspectives as adults, as working adults, as people that have already gotten degrees, that we may not understand fully what they're going through at home when they clock out at school. So we have to be sensitive to that. And there's barriers that we have up, as such as lack of awareness concerning admissions and financial aid, a lack of limited guidance, and undermatching. I'm going to talk a little bit more about undermatching in a second, but these are three of the main barriers affecting our students, and they play out in different ways. A lot of you know we're going to talk about in a bit the adversity index. It's something that as colleges, we understand what students go through. We can actually quantify it into a system that shows us based off of the average education levels in neighborhoods, the average salaries in neighborhoods, crime statistics for certain areas. What are some things that our students are going through, and certain things that we think about that our kids are going through, we can't even fathom. You know, the population I work with, we have students that are the breadwinners for the family. They have to work just to take care of others. We have students that live in food deserts and resource deserts that, you know, want to achieve great things, but may not have access to those things that's going to take them to the next step. We can turn the slide real quick. All right, so we're going to talk about why it's important. So before we get into things that you all can do to become more culturally responsive to our students, and we all can do to become more culturally responsive, it's a couple of things that we have to point out. And why it's important and how it plays out for our students is very important. There was a 2018 op-ed piece in the New York Times that I always refer to that revealed that colleges tend to recruit at richer, whiter schools. Right, and we get it. Higher education is a business, and as a business, we have to think about the bottom line. So admissions counselors are often, they have to prioritize going to schools that's going to allow them to meet talented students and talented students that can't pay that high price of tuition. Otherwise, the financial makeup of the school, you know, will dry up. So what this creates, though, is a cycle, the information cycle, where college counselors and admissions counselors are able to exchange ideas and information about students. Admissions counselors are able to update college counselors on best practices and institutional priorities for those schools and give their students an advantage. And since college counselors relay that information to the students, the success of the students rely on a partnership and a relationship between colleges and high schools. But what happens when admissions counselors are recruiting at schools that are less diverse, but more affluent? The students down the street at the more diverse, less affluent schools typically lose out. That cycle that we talk about, that was on the last slide, is broken. The information doesn't properly get down to the students because there isn't that partnership, there isn't that pipeline. So our students, the more resource strapped our schools are, the more resource strapped our students are, the more disadvantaged they are, those are the students that are losing out the most in this process. In order for us to help them win, we have to start thinking about ways where we can adapt and change and start plugging in the holes in that cycle to continue that loop. Can we hit the next slide? All right, so what that cycle actually produces is undermatching. This is a huge concern in the American public college system. And what we see is about 49% of Black students undermatch, 41% of Latino students undermatch. And for some reason, this graphic did not have white students or Asian students, but we're looking at 45% of white students undermatch and 31% for Asians. So it's a huge problem across the board. And what we're really getting down to is not about race and it's not about ethnicity at this point. What it's really about is socioeconomic status and class. This is more so of a class issue for our students because it's the students that are able to access the information, that are able to connect with college counselors and connect with admissions counselors are going to get that information the most. And what we end up seeing is two different forms of development happen in that college admissions process. We have natural growth here. So a couple of the top reasons for undermatching is perceived affordability. A lot of low income students just simply don't think they can afford the price of tuition. We're looking at some schools that are $60,000, $70,000 and up. You know, for a student that is Pell eligible or coming from a single parent household that may be income strapped, how realistically they're in their minds, they're thinking, how can they afford the high price tag of college tuition? But there's so many resources out there, we have to put them in their hands though. And in order for us to do that, we have to understand where they're coming from and make it relevant to them. The information gap, because that cycle is broken, students are losing out on access to information and to resources. So we have to close that gap for students and we have to get creative. That's something we can do. One thing, and Wendell was talking about this last night while we were talking and planning, one thing that I do in this field is just adjust my office hours a little bit. I know most of you all may not have the ability to do that, but in my role, I can flex my time just a little bit when needed. and my office hours go from 11 to 7 to allow my students time and their parents time to get off work, get situated, get home, and then we can talk about colleges at a time when they're actually able to take off work and do so. Natural growth theory. Dr. Patricia LaRoe is a UPenn professor, wrote an amazing book called Unequal Childhoods. And in it, she tracked, 12 students from a diverse background, diverse populations, and diverse socioeconomic status, and monitored their growth throughout elementary through college. And what she saw that based off of class, students had two completely different experiences. For more affluent students, their parents practice what we call concerted cultivation, where the parents actually cultivate their upbringing. If a student wants to be a lawyer, they pair them with legal internships, with shadowing opportunities. If they want to be a doctor, they connect them with programs like University of Arkansas School of Medical Science out here, UAMS, so that students can get exposed to different opportunities and different resources to prepare themselves for their future. For students of color and low-income students, they more so practice a model called natural growth. We learn from what we see around us. And Wendell always says, what's the line, man? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. So kind of echoing what he's saying, you know, in the organizations that we serve, you know, the 100 Black Men of Greater Little Rock in particular, their motto is what you see is what you'll be. So the natural growth standpoint takes more of a mentor oriented approach to how they serve the scholars in underrepresented communities compared to predominantly white communities.
Yeah. So, and that's one thing that's very important. What you see is what you'll be. But the other part of it is believing it. And that trickles down to imposter syndrome. For a lot of our students, they have to understand that it is a possibility and that it is a possibility for them coming from their unique situation. Mm-hmm. I once had one student a few years ago that was interested in science, loved STEM, was interested in becoming a doctor, but had never seen a Black doctor all through her high school, middle school, and elementary school experience. So for her, she didn't think it was a possibility. Once we connected her with UAMS, she felt like she could do it. She saw other, a large group of diverse students that were also interested in becoming doctors and the ability to connect with Black doctors. So that allowed her to see that it is a possibility for her. So imposter syndrome is something that plagues all of us, our students, adults, the counselors. It's a feeling like you don't belong, like you got lucky, that your hard work didn't get you into your seat now. And for our students, they have to see and believe that they can do it. And that trickles down to the classroom as well, because they have to understand that it is a real possibility for them, and that it's that the educational environment and the learning environment is built for them. Studies have been shown that when students can't connect with the material, or they don't feel it is relevant, they're less likely to continue working hard and less likely to have high success academically. Mm-hmm. Next slide. Or you want to add to that one?
No, I was just saying, just as we go to the next slide, just want to be to our audience. You know, you can leave a yes or no. Have you all experienced any opportunities with undermatching with the scholars you served? Would be interested to see what the audience experience.
And while you're answering your comments, a couple of things that's really important about undermatching. I kind of harp on that a lot. Wendell was pulling up the data now. So it's so many pitfalls to undermatching, especially for our diverse students. So when students undermatch, they tend to be less likely to be satisfied with the college experience. They have an increased dropout rate, increased student loan debt, and a decreased salary compared to their peers after college. So it impacts their lives in so many different ways, and that's when proper college counseling comes in. So it's not just about picking the best college for students, it's about picking the best college for them. So understanding their unique experiences, where they're going to be happy, the type of environment they're going to succeed, and adjusting the way we counsel so that we can properly match them with the right schools for them.
Right, you hit the nail on the head. As we look through the data, in regards to who we serve or how it correlates to their success, some of the things that I want to call out, you know, going back to the type of student we serve, they're more financially conscious. You know, look at this college affordability for students from low backgrounds. A lot of them, it says, have to work 15 hours, you know, to ensure that they have time to make ends meet for classes. You know, as a first-gen college student who started at a community college and made it through to receive my master's, you know, there have been some crucial moments where I didn't think I was going to get through, and I would have been a part of this statistic. So I think it's important that we seek out the resources available to understand how we can better support, but we got to understand like what the data shows already. We do a great job of getting students in school, but that student success retention piece is definitely pivotal as well. And I know in our experience, the first thing that we'll say is it is our job to get them to, but it's not our job to get them through. And I think, you know, as gatekeepers, we have to also calibrate expectations and ensure that they have the adequate resources and they have the academic wherewithal so they can achieve beyond.
So a couple ways that it plays out in the classroom though, and again, I know this is broken down by race. And what we see, especially when it comes to our students, when they don't feel like the material is relevant to them, they tend to disengage. They go the easier route, they go the path of less resistance. And what we see here is a local report of, just as an example, of students taking advanced placement classes in Central Arkansas. And what we see is by race, we see Asians are taking at a higher rate, and white students are second. And at the bottom, we see Hispanic and Black students. Now, there's been a couple of studies done on this that actually tracked why this is. And what they revealed was that the socioeconomic status of students played into it and the parents' motivations. So it's not race. If we just looked at it as far as Black students taking APs or Asian students taking APs, we're going to miss something important here. But what we need to get down to is why aren't they, or why are they? And for many of my students that I've worked with that didn't want to take advanced placement classes, didn't want to push themselves, what we saw was that they didn't see the relevancy of it. They felt that some of the material didn't connect with them, that it was irrelevant, something that they wouldn't use in the future. And unfortunately, this is something that colleges do check out, is the rigor of a classroom schedule, how hard the students push themselves. And once we understand why, and we can adjust the way we counsel students to appeal to them, we're going to get into a few steps, I believe that's coming up in a couple slides, on things that we can do to further motivate our students, to find out their intrinsic motivators, and whether that's finances, whether that's getting into a great college, whether that's just succeeding or learning naturally. That's something that we have to learn from our students. But in order for us to do that, we need to connect with them, having those tough conversations, sitting down with them and figuring out how can we adjust as educators, as a school, as an organization, so that we can best serve our students and meet the needs of our students. Want to add to that one?
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the things you called out, this is a report of Central Arkansas. We'll be interested to see it from a region perspective. The data may, you know, shed some unique lights as well, because let's be fair. All regions aren't made equal, and all schools aren't set up to provide the array of AP courses available, which ultimately then still impact the matriculation experience. Am I right, Darren?
Yep, exactly.
So, and the cause always comes back to addressing needs. You know, I think if we had to create a summation of like where we are in real time with supporting our scholars and things that are important, not just to them, but also in our experience to get the work done. You know, we think about identifying student support systems. I think that comes back to relationships. We've honed in on community. We've honed in on creating opportunities to get to know the scholars and their families. I think one of the things Darren called out was the adversity index. That is pivotal in how we can understand our scholars, but also how higher ed or educational institutions can support or look at trying to support and navigate those waters. Darren, could you shed a little more light on the adversity index and how it can impact addressing needs?
Yeah, so the diversity index, I'm not sure if everyone is aware of it, but it rolled out, I want to say around 2018 from the College Board. It's pretty much associated with the ACT. So when students take the ACT, it generated two numbers to colleges. One would be the average ACT score that we all get. The other is the adversity index, which ranks students on a scale from 0 to 100. That shows how much adversity a student went through to get that score. It tracks students on a few different indicators that range from the average crime in neighborhoods to the average educational levels, the average income of neighborhoods, as well as the average income and those factors for the school as well that the student attends. The important part about it, though, is that that is a way of the College Board adjusting to the needs of the students, because we know what went into this 25. For the population I work with, Black students in Arkansas, the average ACT score is a 17.5. So for the adversity index, we understand what goes into that 17. What did a student have to go through, and how impressive is that score considering all the unique challenges that that student went through? Wendell just posted the link to it in the chat if you want to read a little bit more about it. But with that adversity index, we know that there are several factors that affect students. And if the College Board and the ACT acknowledge it, I feel as educators, we can also do things on our part to confront it and to fix the challenges that we have control of at our at our schools. So whether that is giving our students realistic options as far as their colleges, if that is producing a safe environment where our students feel comfortable enough to come to school and learn, if that's removing barriers that we may not think about, but our students are reporting to us that this is something that they feel like they can't connect to or they can't relate to. Talking to our students to cut off those challenges before it reaches their senior year will help, one, our students succeed. They'll find themselves immersed in the process, adjusting to the college process on their own, but it will also find them success in the fact that by removing those barriers, they're going to be more focused and more motivated, because that's one obstacle challenge they won't have to think about during the day.
Yep. Great call out. And just kind of leveraging the conversation from the index to what we see on the slides. I think the access issue, I know this has been serving and supporting students heavy, but I want to call out this parent engagement piece. A lot of what we do can't be done without parents' involvement. We in my role historically, we try to create as many opportunities to bring parents in. You schedule the one-on-ones, you do the big fairs, but I think from a community approach, there are so many other opportunities where we can create engaging opportunities to, one, provide them the training and tool skills they need, because with all of the advances in technology, a lot of this work is being placed back on the student, because we have had been social distance. They're changing the way we test. Students can take the SAT sitting at home, so a lot of this information has to be completed at home where parents may or may not be. So I know Darren does a great job making sure parents are aware and have the training they need. I think we do our best as well, and I'm sure you all do your best to make sure parents are engaged, but I just want to continue to let that be at the forefront when you're working with scholars to provide those and address needs.
All right, so this is the part we've been waiting for. So how do we cultivate students for success? A few suggestions for being a culture responsive counselor. So I think it's important for us to remember too that as counselors, or in our unique role, at least in my role and Wendell's role, we're not in the classroom. We're at that intersection between the classroom and colleges, right? So we have the ability to see from a top-down view of the challenges our students are facing. We also meet with a wide amount of students, a large amount of students. The average counselor caseload in the state of Arkansas, at least in Little Rock, is about 400 to 450 students per counselor. That is a lot. And while that is at times a disadvantage because it reduces the time we can work with students, what we're able to find is that we're able to connect with and learn from a large amount of students about their experience, a diverse amount of students about their particular experience. So a couple of things that we can do, understanding that the students that we're coming from are diverse, have several unique challenges. We can be flexible with our approach, whether that's adjusting our time. And I know for counselors and educators in the school building, you may not have that ability because when the school bell lets out, that's it. So finding other ways to connect. One way I've done that is through SCORE. It's the college data retrieval tools, the CRM, that allows us to connect with counselors, with students in it. You good?
Yep, go ahead. Yep.
All right, that allows us to connect with students in a unique way. And it allows me to connect with parents and students at the same time. And just to make it more accessible, all students can download apps and actually message me directly from that app that connects straight to my phone. So it makes students feel more comfortable if they have something that they're thinking about while they're hanging out with friends or at work or in school, a quick message, quick email, and they're there. Other things that you can do is setting up your office in a way where it is more comfortable for students. They feel comfortable coming to you and they view you as a safe space. Mm-hmm. Whether that's signs to show that you are an ally in whatever term that means or whatever way that means to them, but knowing that you are a figure in the school building that they can approach. A lot of times, as educators, we don't realize it, but we're in the school. So we're technically associated with an institution. And a lot of times with students, when they see institution, they think they have no power, no control. So it's important for us to allow them to know that they do have power and control in this process and that they can approach us to learn how to advocate for themselves and to walk step and step with them so we can guide them through that process. Number two, Wendell tapped on it earlier, connecting with families. I think this is very important because as 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old students, they may not always have a vocabulary or an understanding of what they need, but sometimes their parents can actually help you out with that by allowing you to understand their unique challenges and give you insight into students that the student may not be aware of about themselves. So connecting with families, understanding their unique challenges, and adjusting the way that you approach advising to a way that meets the family's needs. Advocating for students, like I said a minute ago, at times students just haven't learned that skill of how to advocate for themselves yet. So one thing we can do as educators, as counselors, is to best advocate for our students, whether that is encouraging them to take harder classes, talking to their teachers or counselors about what the student needs to succeed, and we're trying to just remove any barriers for them. But teaching the students how to advocate for themselves will take them a long way in this process as well. Number four, collaborative professional learning. Mm-hmm. So in most of our fields, we work with a set population. We have a caseload of, I work with 150 students in my program. I'm sure Wendell has a couple hundred that he works with. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing about it is at times we get kind of blinded to the unique challenges of our group. Connecting with other professionals in that field that's also working, maybe in your school, in neighboring communities that's going through unique challenges. Sometimes they may have already come up with solutions to problems that you're just now facing, and vice versa. So it's important to connect with other professionals just to learn. And SACAC, another plug to join up, is a great way to do that. And the last one is feedback and observation loop. So with that, listening to your students, listening to other educators, and listening to your parents, allowing students, parents, and other educators a safe spot where they can give productive feedback making observations and looking for trends and cycles within that observation loop. Once you can identify those cycles and trends, you can start making active changes in the school that's going to create a more comfortable environment for all of your students.
Yeah, that was great. Just a echo that for collaborative professional learning, if you're in a high school, you know, there are PLCs. I don't know if you're a part of a PLC, professional learning community within your school. I think it's always important to put yourself in those spaces, because a lot of times how we serve our students, maybe, I know from my experience, most of the time when I was working with our scholars, it was from 11th and 12th grade lens. By being in a professional learning community, you may get the inside deets on a student from their experience as a 9th and 10th grader, so on and so forth. So just make sure you're placing yourself so you can better understand your scholars you're serving. And I think me and Darren will both speak to this. I know he elaborated earlier. We talked about pathway programs. We focused on community a lot as well, and he mentioned the growth, the natural growth piece. Natural growth piece. And he, of course, he's going to shed some light on the scope and sequence of this, but I just wanted to calibrate the slide by saying that there are a variety of programs throughout this state to support all of the scholars we serve. I think we do them a disservice by not recognizing that there are a variety of resources to supplement and enhance how we serve them, both during the present and beyond as they matriculate. So, Darren, if you want to share a little more insight into what we're looking at now.
Yeah, so Wonder Wood put me on the spot for this one. This isn't my slide, but I got it. So
I know. No, we're gonna talk about it though, but I just want you to lean in a little too.
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is different programs that students in our area can join up. And the reason why this is so important is the admissions council in the Colorado is we love to see the students are prepared, right? And one way we can see that is not through, well, we do see it through their GPA, their ACT score, but those soft skills that they pick up. And the way they can pick up soft skills, especially for our underrepresented students, our low income students, is joining in different programs. Wendell has up a few diversity initiatives from UAMS's summer enrichment programs. And these are free programs, and some of them, they actually get college credit. They receive stipends. So it removes tons of barriers and obstacles for students and give them an incentive to join. But the incentive that is really important is the exposure to different things. Like I said earlier, in order to see it, in order to be it, you have to see it. And this is one way where they can be it. Like the student I talked about a minute ago that had never seen a Black doctor, grew up in Silver Hills, had never seen a minority doctor her whole life. This was our opportunity to connect and feel like she could see it and she could be it. So with their programs, they have everything from primary school education going all the way up to med school. But they have pre-health programs and scholarship programs that are summer enrichment programs for our students to go to for 3 weeks, 5 weeks over the summer, and just learn from professors and from doctors the skills that they're going to need in the future. So if a student is really interested in STEM, you know, they can learn biology, they can learn chemistry while in class, but how do they really know they want to be a doctor unless, you know, they actually see what it's like to draw blood and what an experiment is like. I wanted to be a lawyer until I got my first legal internship, and then I realized that wasn't the path for me. So in order for students to understand what they want and what their future is going to look like, it's a great idea to give them heads up now. There are a lot of colleges out there that have programs that students can jump in as early as the 10th grade. So programs like WashU in St. Louis has a summer enrichment program, several different summer enrichment programs where students can attend, get college credit, take classes from WashU professors. Swanee has a Summa Theological debate camp. Colorado College has several. Davidson College, North Carolina has July Experience. There are so many opportunities out there, and the beautiful part about it is while some of them have really expensive price tags that can go up to $5,000, $8,000, a lot of them offer financial aid, and some of them are actually free to students. Carleton College's program is actually free to students. Franklin and Marshall has a free one for KIPP students. So I know we have some people from the Delta. If you're associated with KIPP, Franklin and Marshall's program is free for you all. So finding out those resources for your students, connecting your students to those resources can be a game changer for all of them.
Mm-hmm. Just want to call out, and I put you on the spot because I wanted to lift it up. In regards to, I know we carry heavy caseloads, but what in my experience, both serving community and in my high school, I realized that from a lack of exposure piece, there were certain pathways that we didn't have available for our underrepresented community. So I partnered with local industries. This is last summer, and we developed the H2O Leadership Institute in partnership with Central Arkansas Water, the Arkansas National Guard, UALR, and a variety of other, Arkansas Innovation Hub. And it was a 912 environmental STEM, water conservation. And these industries are, you getting out earning $75,000 out of college. Some jobs were out of high school, but you had to know about it to pursue it. So work with your local community stakeholders. I'm telling you, we didn't have to pay a dime. A lot of them are just looking at ways to lean in with the local high school. Workforce development is key. And if we can find a way to be the conduit early, we provide our scholars a better advantage so they can be successful beyond.
So we have a couple questions about those programs. So I just added the right link to the chat for UAMS's Summer Enrichment Program. Another great resource out there is College Greenlight. Yep. They list several different summer research opportunities, fly-in programs, opportunities such as UAMS's program is also listed on there, but tons of ways where your students can get a little bit of extra exposure and enrichment over the summer. The prices are also listed on there too, so you can see how affordable they are for your students. But keep in mind, a lot of those programs do have scholarships. For my organizations, for instance, we have partnerships with schools like Washington, St. Louis, and Sewanee, which is why I mentioned those. A lot of the times, these schools are looking for diversity. So if you have a diverse group of students that are interested, just reach out to their directors. I used to run the program at Davidson College. And we would more so rather have students that want to be there on campus than thinking about the money, especially for those summer enrichment programs. So just reach out to us and let us know how we can help out. But there's the link for College Greenlight. Wendell just put that one in the chat, as well as UAMS's DDEI programs.
And what I will tell you, because it is March, well, we're almost March, I'm sorry. We're ending February, but I can tell you local industries are working right now to lift up summer programming. So, I can, once we conclude, I can put my email in the chat, and how I can be of service to share those resources. We definitely can do that because they will be available.
And I know we're almost at time, so we're going to speed through the rest, but I have to give one shout out. Nick Pettis just posted a link in the chat. He is the contact at UAMS. Nick, would you mind putting your email in the chat too and letting people reach out to you? And if you have any questions, I know we're at time, but feel free to post them in the chat or unmute and shoot them at us.
Yeah, I think this is the time. One of our things from what me and Darren were able to talk about, our call to action is for everyone on the call to get out of their comfort zone. I know we talked about regions, we talked about community, but to do this work, we're definitely going to have to have those tough conversations, maybe with our faculty and staff, but also with our community stakeholders, so they can know how to better serve the scholars and provide ample resources so they can thrive, not just to, but through college.
All right, and if no questions, I want to thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it and hope this was helpful.
Yeah, actually, I have a quick question for you gentlemen. So you both mentioned a lot of resources. So I'm personally a brand new college counselor. This is my first year, so you are really helping me out a lot. Great info. So you mentioned College Greenlight. What about any Arkansas summer programs? Does anyone in the state kind of have just like a list of those summer programs that we can just blast out to our students instead of each of us kind of going out doing our own research and recreating the wheels? Or something already in existence? Wendell, I feel like you maybe referenced something. Can you share a little bit more about what that is?
I don't think there is like and that this may be our call to action. Maybe collectively we create a state list of I think that's a great lift in how we support our counselors, but also how we serve our students. I know right now, you have the Central Arkansas Water does an internship program every year, the local institutions, but we can definitely connect anybody interested in working with us to create a list that we can share out timely. I think that would definitely be a great way to ensure our teams that we serve have ample resources to support the scholars.
Yeah, and while we were smiling when you asked that question, is because we've been talking about doing something like this for years. So maybe it's something just as simple as creating a Google Doc and a spreadsheet that we can all connect with, so we won't recreate the wheel. One thing that Arkansas Commitment does as well, though, besides working with students, we also do counselor trainings as well. So if you want to learn more about holistic admissions, need-based financial aid, we do free workshops for students, 2 to 3 part workshops for students. Just reach out. I'll put my email in the chat. Since it's COVID, we're also able to do it virtually too. So if you need anything, feel free to reach out. Once a year before COVID, we would do counselor workshops. We would invite schools like Stanford with their SCOPE program to come out and do free professional development workshops for students. And that's something I want to get back to. So maybe for the 2022-2023 school year.
Yeah, I see Miss Jewel on here. Wanna shout her out as well. They provide a great resource every year. That's basically what we use when we have our workshops with our scholars. But it's basically an Arkansas template. It provides every list of colleges. It provides a 9 through 12 checklist, a variety of different scholarships. So they have a digital version, and you can submit a form, and they can mail you the booklets as well. So if she could put that contact in the chat, that will be also an additional resource to support those on the call.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue because Levon is actually our next presenter. Wendell, Darren, thank you so much. If y'all don't mind, hang around in case anyone has any questions, throw in the chat just for a few more minutes to see if anyone has those questions, get that contact. I saw someone mentioned in the chat about sharing the PowerPoint presentation. So yes, both this presentation and Levon's that she's about to do will be shared with everyone in attendance, as well as recording. So we'll have you covered on that front. So without further ado, I definitely want to transition into our financial aid segment. Wendell and Darren really hit a good point about how financially conscious Gen Z is and how that impacts their college application journey process. So Levon brings actually over 22 years of financial aid experience with us today. She was the director of financial aid at Pulaski Tech for a decade, plus several other institutions. And specifically at ASLA, she works with families as they navigate the college process. She is the brain behind that How to Pay to College booklet that Wendell referenced. So today she's really going to focus on those FAFSA changes that are coming up in the next few years, just to make sure that we are ahead of the game, proactive, so that way as family asks us questions, we can be prepared to support them, as well as just some strategies to help our students keep actually submitting that FAFSA to be eligible for that aid. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to you, Levon. And once again, everyone, we are monitoring the chat. So if you have those questions, please feel free to pop those in.
Well, good morning, everyone. I hope that you are all doing well. I'm so excited to be here. I really enjoyed the last presentation and wish that I would have been able to hop on sooner. I hope that you find information about financial aid as interesting as I found the information that we just had. Really enjoyed that. My name is Levon Jewell, and when I sent you my information, I guess I didn't do my math. I started in financial aid as a work study student at the University of Arkansas at Monticello. And this is actually, I started my 25th year in financial aid this year. I didn't realize that, but this is my 25th year in financial aid. And it's been an interesting ride. Financial aid is something that changes each year, but we do have some changes on the horizon. And I hope that I can give you information that will be helpful. Let me share my screen. I don't think I've done that yet. Let me bounce over here. Share screen. There we go. Okay. I hope that you're all seeing that. You should see a little backpack with some shoes and our logo. If you're not, just post a little comment in chat and I'll figure out what I'm doing here. So, all right, let's jump in and get started. And that way we have some time for questions as we go through. Okay, we're just simply going to talk about FAFSA simplification, some completion strategies that have served me well over the few years or the 25 years I've been in financial aid, and some resources that I think will be helpful. If you've been in financial aid or student services and counseling and that kind of thing, you know that the financial aid process is something that really hasn't changed a lot in the years that it's been available. So it's just replacing some processes that have become outdated and need to be revised. The full implementation is not going to be complete until the 24-25 cycle. And so we'll kind of talk about what's going to happen over the next few processing cycles, and that last 24-25 year, there are still some unknowns, but I'll give you some resources that you can follow along and learn with us as we're learning the new information. Okay. I did want to throw this in here. It's not really FAFSA simplification, but as you're helping students, we did find out on January 31st that the Pell Grant is going to remain the same. And so I just wanted to give you that little piece of information. There is not going to be an increase or a decrease for the 22-23 year. It is going to remain the same. Okay, so for our 2023 seniors, their application, not really significant changes. The selective service and the drug conviction questions are going to remain on the FAFSA, but they're not going to get the comments that they received in the past. There's not going to be a student aid eligibility worksheet to work through any drug conviction issues, and selective service, they're also putting things into place where that is automatically checked. And so that burden doesn't fall on a college financial aid office to determine whether or not students have registered for selective service and jeopardized aid eligibility. The homeless questions, they are going to remain on the FAFSA, but if a student had answered them the previous year, those questions don't have to be answered again. That information will roll over and be renewal eligible. So, you know, you don't have to go back and rehash, you know, some tough conversations with students. So I think that that is going to be a helpful change. Just from working in a financial aid office, some of those conversations are tough to have with students to make sure they answer them correctly. Okay, also in the 23-24 processing year, the data retrieval tool, it is going to go away, and it is going to be replaced with a new term called the FADDX. And I apologize that I did not get what the FADDX stood for, and I don't think that it has, like the data retrieval tool, it was the DRT. I think it just means data exchange, tax data exchange, but it will automatically happen. And so there's not going to be that glitch where you're wanting to do the data retrieval tool and you have to leave the FAFSA to go into that secondary processing system and then come back into the FAFSA. It sounds like it's going to be a more seamless transfer of information. So excited about that change and to see what that's actually going to look like when they get that up and running in a test version. If you're familiar with SULA, that was the subsidized usage limit applied. It's no longer in effect. Students no longer have a time frame to complete a degree to remain eligible for subsidized student loans. So that's just kind of a financial aid burden relief in the financial aid office. So they're not having to track the time frame to completion and take away subsidized student loans for those students who were need-based for that program. The Pell lifetime eligibility used, that went away the past couple of years, but it is coming back. And so if you're familiar with the Pell lifetime eligibility used, what that is students are only allowed to receive 600% of Pell. So if they can attend 6 years full-time and receive Pell, but once they exceed that, then they're no longer eligible to use Pell Grant. So, you know, the implementation of year-round Pell, it kind of hurts students who want to come to summer school. I mean, most of them are progressing faster and will graduate early, but some students take summer classes and don't realize when they use that Pell eligibility in the summer term, it also calculates towards their lifetime eligibility used. And I'm sorry, I've had COVID, and so I get where I need to take a drink, so I apologize for that. Okay, and also in 23-24, they are adding these new questions, race and ethnicity and gender identity. These will not impact the student eligibility, but it is written into legislation that these questions are now required on the FAFSA, and they are going to only be for research purposes. So that will be new. And if students don't want to answer those questions, they didn't really say, in one of our financial aid meetings, someone asked that, what if they skip those questions? And they really didn't give an indication of what would happen on the FAFSA, but we do know that it's not going to impact eligibility. And then the 24-25 year, when everything is supposed to wrap up as far as implementing the changes, the big thing is that the estimated family contribution and the way that we've always determined a student's Pell eligibility, it is going to change to the SAI in 24-25, and that is called the Student Aid Index. Pell Grant will be calculated differently, and there will be a different formula for schools to use. And so the term estimated family contribution, we understand that it's still going to be on the FAFSA, but the Student Aid Index is what is going to be used to determine financial aid eligibility. There were a lot of other items that right now there's just not enough information for anyone that I talk to in financial aid to shed much light on. But stay tuned, and if y'all do this annually, you know, as I attend meetings and get more information, I would certainly, you know, be able to provide that back to you. But the SAI is the most important thing. And when we do the How to Pay for College booklet, we will probably in 23-24 and 24-25 have some different language so that students can hopefully pick up on these terms and we can all move through the transition well. Were there any questions that you had about FAFSA simplification before we move into the strategies for completing the FAFSA? I'm looking at the chat. Okay, I don't see any right now, but I will keep watching it to see if anything pops up. But just stay tuned, and at the end of the presentation, I'll give you some resources that might be helpful to you if you don't already have those, where you can follow along with financial aid offices and college access professionals to get this information. Okay. You know, being in financial aid for a long time, this screen here is something that I really created when I worked at Pulaski Tech. I would meet with a lot of first generation students, and you know, we would give them a big list of instructions on how to move through the FAFSA. And you know, now having a college student, and you know, after years of helping college students, I think if you just break it down into 3 steps, it lessens the anxiety for the process. So these are the 3 steps that I kind of go into help sessions with students, and we just take 1, 2, and 3, and we move through the process. I tell students to get your federal student aid ID for you and your parent, then complete the FAFSA with a small checklist of things together, which that list is kind of dwindling. You really don't have to have a lot on hand when you're completing the FAFSA these days. And once you submit the FAFSA, we encourage all students to apply for Arkansas state aid. And we're really fortunate in Arkansas to have the many state aid programs. And so I just break it down real easy like that with minimal information so that they can hopefully not have a lot of anxiety when they sit down to do the FAFSA. A few things that they did start this year that have made it a little bit easier: if a family has 2 children in college, the students can pull the data from the siblings application. I was helping a student in Mayflower, and she had twins, and we did one student's first, and she was like, okay, now I need to do my son. And I was like, oh, you have another child. And so we started doing it, and I noticed that you can, you know, just move that information over. And that was a nice feature that I had not had to use before, but it did work well. So I do think that the Department of Ed is moving in a great direction to streamline these processes and make it easier. But as we help students, we kind of need to meet them where they are. And these are just the 3 bullets that I go into every presentation with to get them started and through a process. Let's see, go to the next one. I do think that it is important to really stress financial aid and get information to students their junior year. We've got a question up here. Yes, we will be sending the PowerPoint out. Thank you for that question. Providing students with information during their junior year is critical. I had a junior during the peak of COVID, and you know, I didn't realize how much information he really missed until the senior year started, and I found out quickly that deadlines were as early as November for some of the colleges that he was interested in. And so, you know, I just think as much information and as much talk and repeating this financial aid information that you can during that junior year, it's very helpful. I met with a family this week that has a junior, and they said, okay, what do we do? And I said, you know, I would encourage you to start narrowing down your college list to 3 or 4 and a plan B, and then start, you know, getting applications turned in and looking at your deadlines, because they come really fast. Some schools we've seen have great success at celebrating FAFSA opening day on October 1st by having, you know, just an awareness party. I think, you know, one school did chips and salsa, one school did cupcakes, just little things to get, you know, the excitement about FAFSA started so that students and families don't wait a long time to submit the FAFSA. You can see FAFSA completion rates by high schools and public school districts online. And you know, just looking at the state of Arkansas, we still have a very low percentage of students who complete the FAFSA. Even though it is required for the state aid application, our FAFSA completion rate is low. And in my mind, you know, not eligible for much need-based aid, but some students just don't do it because no one met them where they were to get them to do the application. So, you know, you can look at your high school and you can look at the districts to see, you know, do I need to have an awareness night? Do I need to get someone else in? And high school counselors, it's public information. And all you basically have to do is put in FAFSA completion by high school and public school district, and the information pops up. It will give you a map. It compares years, the previous year to the current year, and it's updated monthly. So it's a really good tool that I use to see, okay, do we really need to push FAFSA completion, or is everyone, are they on pace with where they were last year? For Arkansas students, high school counselors have access to the state aid portal. And so you can see what students have completed that state aid application. I will say one of the main things that I've encountered through my entire career is students not making Plan B and planning to go to an out-of-state college and not completing state aid applications. So they miss deadlines. So, you know, even if someone says they're going to Ole Miss or Mississippi State or Tennessee, if they're an Arkansas student, go ahead and encourage them to do that state aid application. Because a lot of students do miss scholarship dollars because their initial plan didn't quite work out. We encourage students to use free resources. In Arkansas, I am fortunate to get to work on the How to Pay for College booklet. We've been doing these for many, many years. And they do provide step-by-step instructions on completing the FAFSA, information on state aid programs, federal aid programs, military benefits, saving for college, which is something that we're really starting to push with the 529 plan. Because, I mean, college, it's getting more and more expensive, but federal aid isn't keeping up with the cost of education. We do have checklists for every grade level. We did add a couple of years ago, I don't know if y'all can see that, the information log. Students and parents forgetting their passwords and the emails that they used was a challenge in a financial aid office. And so when I came here, I was like, we need to put some kind of information log so that parents can write this information down and keep it for safekeeping. One of my goals is to at some point have this booklet where it has a pocket, because you get so much information that you need a place to make this a file folder, because it is a wealth of information that students can use all 4 years of school. And we do make those available in the state of Arkansas to all of our institutions, federal programs, community groups. And you basically just email me and I get those in the mail to you. Financial aid nights, it's important to have at least one, if not two. Tying them with PTSO meetings or another event on campus where parents are there is very helpful. With COVID, it has been difficult because we're not always allowed into the school to offer that one-on-one assistance. And while we can give information virtually or just a quick presentation, really sitting down next to a family and helping them, I feel like is the best way to get them through processes. You know, and I like to go to smaller school districts because you do meet first generation students who their parents don't have email. And, you know, I was really shocked. I've probably helped 20 or 30 students create an email address because they've never had to have one. And to me, that's foreign. But you would really be surprised when you start helping lots of different people from across the state. You realize that they don't have the resources and the things that they need to navigate all of these processes. But I've helped parents and students create an email address to get them through the financial aid office. And those kinds of things are done by having a financial aid night. And I encourage schools to have, you know, maybe an information session in the fall, and then in the spring, okay, now it's time to really get busy. If you've not done this, you need to come and get this done, and tie those with an event going on your campus for public, where the parents are going to be available to come. Social media. I'm not great on social media, but parents do follow social media. The Department of Ed does a great job, or they're getting better at providing information, tools, videos, resources that you can share out to families that, you know, you don't have to come up with on your own to share with your students. And so those are things that are available, and I'll show you where you can get the social media information if you've not used the toolkit before. Resources, state association, in Arkansas, we have the Arkansas Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators. I don't know everything about financial aid, but I do know financial aid people all over the state of Arkansas, and we all work together very well. We try to keep processes the same so that students, if they're transferring between schools, they're not having to learn something completely new. We try really hard in Arkansas to make all of our processes very similar and name our forms the same. And so use state associations, use ASFA. ASFA has a website. If you're wanting a financial aid night, there's probably not a director or someone in a financial aid office or myself that would not be willing to do that for you. The FSA Knowledge Center, I'm sort of new to the Knowledge Center. Having been in a financial aid office, I got different information, but the Knowledge Center has been very helpful to me. They have monthly college access professional meetings. They share that information on Facebook, so I follow the FSA Knowledge Center information closely, and I try to attend every webinar that they have, and that's where I get the information for the changes that are coming up. The Financial Aid Toolkit, that's a resource that's been around for a long time, and that's where you get your information for social media posts, how-to videos, guides for certain circumstances. Parents are divorced, whose income do I use? They have flyers for that question. So it's a really good web resource that you could probably dive into and get some quick access information. State education departments, ADHE, that staff over there, they're great to work with. They do state aid presentations as they're available and as needed. And that's kind of where in my job, I really love it because I try to stay in touch with federal aid opportunities, and I'm able to attend the state aid meetings. And so I try to take some of the burden off of the busier offices and be available basically all over the state of Arkansas to help students and counselors and colleges with their specific needs and questions. But all of these pieces of information are readily available. And then lastly, this is my contact information. I am in Little Rock. That is my mobile number on the card that you see there. I give it to students. You would be surprised at the students that would rather send me a quick text and, ask their question. That's easier for them because sometimes they don't want to ask their question in person. And a lot of those come down to a family situation or a household situation that's not traditional. Mom and dad are divorced, whose income do I put? They feel more comfortable sending that quick text, and I respond and, let them know I'm available right now, or let's come back to that tomorrow if it's 10 o'clock at night and I'm not quite awake well enough to answer those questions. But, at ASLO, we do all of the college planning things, and our goal is to make sure that the students have access to all of the free money first, and that they've done everything that they can to get the free money. And, we talk to them about how to continue to access free money when they're in school. And so that's what we do here. And that's how I hope that I can help you and students that you have with questions that they may have. Does anyone have any questions for me? That was kind of fast. I don't know if I stayed within the 30 minutes.
Yeah, no, you're great. So definitely, if anyone has any of those questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. LaVon is such a wealth of knowledge, so really great opportunity to connect with her now. But in the meantime, while you're thinking about those questions, typing those out, the one thing I love about SACAC is just the information sharing. And so we have so many counselors, career coaches, people on the college side on this webinar right now. And as host, I have the power to allow you to talk. So I think one of the big things that LaVon hit on is meeting students where they are, meeting parents where they are. At the same time, we all know when we have those night events, the turnout is usually pretty low. So I would just love to hear if any of y'all out there have events, programs, initiatives that you have been able to build some of that parent engagement. you know, what works for you, maybe we can spread that across the state and get more FAFSA completions.
And I will say that some of the schools that I have presented with, they will do gift cards, and they will do a drawing for, you know, Sonic or, you know, whatever the local restaurant is in town. Kids like food, and so kids and the families will come. And, you know, I've seen some that, you know, have really great drawings for attendance. So that's always something good to, you know, a carrot to get them there. And, you know, here at ASLA, we've been talking about, you know, we have the Preston Woodruff Scholarship drawing that we do each year, and we give away $21,000 scholarships, but getting 20 kids to respond is the hardest thing ever. And so we've talked about, okay, do we want to maybe tie our scholarships to our financial aid nights? Instead of having the drawing, if we do the financial aid nights, the first 20 schools that we do, $1,000 scholarship will be drawn that night. So that's something that we're considering. That would be a big draw. But yes, parents need to really get involved, and some of those family situations do make that tough.
I know one school I was working with, they're trying to think of, you know, those strategies, those drawings, and thinking about, you know, helping the parents out that pocketbook. So some of those things that they can't get some of those big numbers in, but can they do a drawing for, you know, a senior passport that, you know, covers the yearbook, covers prom ticket, some of those things, that way the parents aren't coming up out of pocket, some of those type of initiatives. So
That's a great idea.
Anyone on the webinar right now have any like really awesome college application month or that month of October initiatives that you've seen helpful? I know the state likes to push that and really focus in on October. All right. Well, no worries. All right. Well,
I can add one. So one thing that I do with Arkansas Commitment, instead of doing a singular college night, I'll host a series every Tuesday and Thursday, a college night series. Different colleges come on, they talk about financial aid, admissions practices. So even if a parent or a student can't work into their schedule one event, they will be able to at least attend one of those virtually. So just giving them more options instead of one designated date.
well, again, thank you both so much. So that's the end of our official workshop sessions, but SACAC is really excited to welcome our premier sponsor, Revolution Prep. So once again, SACAC is just able to provide so many opportunities for you, your students, and so having this sponsorship is just going to allow us to expand that. So I'm going to turn it over to Marlene just for a couple of minutes. Marlene, did you want me to share the slides, or did you want to do it?
Yes, and I will be about 2 minutes, so I appreciate everybody hanging in there this morning or this afternoon, wherever you may be. Perfect. So again, my name is Marlene Fishbein. I am the National Director here at Revolution Prep. I think you might just want to press from the beginning on the. Perfect.
All right,
I'll go over who we are. So Revolution Prep has been around since 2002. We are a college readiness company that helps students and educators and all families get the resources they need. We have more than 10 years of live online tutoring experience. So we were not one of the companies that had a pivot when the pandemic hit. We've actually been doing this for over 10 years. We've also delivered more than 1 million hours of online instruction and offer more than 100 academic and test prep subjects. But along with our tutoring, we offer a lot of different options for schools to give free resources to their families. So next slide, please. Perfect. So right here on the slide, and I'll go into a little more detail in a minute, we offer professional tutors. We have a dedicated team at Revolution Prep that is making sure that every faculty, student, and family is getting what they need and what they deserve. Next slide, please. The Revolution Prep, we want to make sure that your students get all the free resources that they are interested in. We offer SAT and ACT and PSAT 101 strategy sessions. These are little boot camps. They are absolutely free to your students to learn more about the test, different tips, techniques, and things that they can do on the test day to lower their stress. We are all about lowering their stress and their anxiety, as students have a lot going on these days, and we want to make sure that they are going into the test, if they choose to take them, there are test optional schools now, prepared and confident. We also offer practice SAT and ACT and PSAT exams. Students get their score instantly. You know, students these days want everything instantly. Families, you know, want answers right away. So we can provide that. When they take a practice test with us, they get a QR code and they are able to get their exam scores right away, as well as get a score review with an expert from Revolution Prep. Lastly, we have different webinars, live, online, and in person. One of my favorite is how executive functioning skills improve grades and lower stress. Those executive functioning skills are the core of what makes the student achieve what they want to achieve. And we're really big on making sure they know how to study, organize, and make sure they are confident. Insider's Guide to College Admissions Test, PSAT Now What, AP exams, using your growth potential. It's huge. I can and I will rather than I can't and I won't, plus many more guest speakers. And then lastly, in the next slide, we do have different products, but what I really want to talk about for a second is Revolution Prep is really proud to provide need-based scholarships for any student who can't afford our program. So of course, we have programs that are parent paid, that are school paid, but we want to make sure that they are getting what they need and what they want. So we are a company that is really focused on our social mission. So please let us know if we can ever do anything for you all. And also on the bottom of the slide, you know, we want to take care of you. I don't think you can see it. It's the last bullet point. Our faculty at, you know, our staff at Revolution Prep gets 50% off our products. So you on this call, your family, your child, your niece, your nephew, we are happy to give them 50% off all of the programs, as well as all of your faculty at the school. So again, my name is Marlene Fishbein from Revolution Prep. I'm so happy to have this partnership with SACAC. I've been with Revolution Prep for 9.5 years. I've been a really active participant in all the SACAC conferences, and I love what you all do. And I thank you on this call for doing what you do. I know it's not been an easy couple of years. So please give me a call if you have any questions about our programs, free, parent paid, school paid, or just want to talk through some ideas. I'm happy to help. And again, thank you for having me today.
All right, thank you so much, Marlene. All right, everyone, well, that wraps us up, but I want to make sure that you know what to expect next. So like we said, we will be sharing the recording as well as these PowerPoint presentations with you all. But for those of you that are earning those clock hours, the SACAC will be emailing out an email with a follow-up evaluation as well as a log form. So please make sure that you're looking for that email directly from SACAC, so that way they can get that processing going for you. And as always, we always want to work, improve, learn the topics that you're wanting, so that way next go around we can make sure that we are incorporating that. And then of course, join SACAC and all the amazing things. So with that being said, we'll sign off. Just be on the lookout for those emails coming through. Darren, just real quick, do you have any last words just as far as being our SACAC chair?
I don't, but I can. So thank you all for hopping on. Again, if you are interested in signing up for SACAC, please do so. $45 for most members and free for CBOs and public school counselors. Also, registration for our annual conference is now open. So there is an early bird special, I believe. I can't remember the price, I'm not gonna say one, but just go online to sacac.org and you'll see it there. But now it's the time to sign up. Hope to see you in Orlando.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.